a high achieving, athletic, super kind of strong guy expressing love and emotion and kindness. Well, here we are again.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, David. So on this video, we are going to review the Novak Djokovic, on-court post-US Open final victory interview. And we're going to discuss his comments and how it relates to mental health, well-being, resilience, being the person you want to be.
Great. Yeah, I found myself very just personally, I watched this final with my cousin, and I don't know, we get all jazzed up about like how can we apply not just to tennis but to life. Like they're working so hard, they're so accomplished. Is there anything we can learn about how to be our best selves from Djokovic and Medvedev and all these people who are incredibly high performers?
All right.
So yeah,
let's watch. Nice to stop it there for a second.
Okay.
Just in terms of acknowledging how one gets to where one is. In a recent Huberman discussion with the psychiatrist Paul Conti on mental health, Paul Conti says two of the foundations of good mental health are agency and gratitude. And there's conditions to that, of course, et cetera. And why I bring that up is because what Djokovic is talking about right now is gratitude. Okay, so he's acknowledging his gratitude to all the things that helped him get to where he is. And he's also acknowledging the difficulties that he, obviously not in full detail, the difficulties he had to endure to get to where he is. And the last thing I'll say about that is oftentimes people resist acknowledging their achievements and their accomplishments because they don't want to seem egotistical or they don't want to acknowledge their qualities. And one doorway into that is to include your accomplishments with the acknowledgement and the gratitude and appreciation to all the people that helped you get to where you are.
So why is gratitude important? Other than just being like the nice thing to do, like we always say, like a thank you. That's like we teach kids to be polite. It's polite. But why is gratitude, in your view, Mike, so important for recognizing one's success and achieving one's objectives?
I think, in some sense, I'm going to give the experiential answer because there's all kinds of neuroscience to back it up and thousands of years of wisdom tradition. As a matter of personal physiological and psychic experience, when you are in a place of gratitude, it simply feels good. It actually feels good in your body and in your mind, and it puts you at ease, right? Or in connection with existence. And so I would say that's one. And it's a much more energizing energy, right? It's a much more sort of uplifting, light, pleasant energy. So rather than thinking about all the things you don't have or all the things that aren't good, which is a heavy energy, a unhelpful energy, simply that, practically speaking, it just allows people to be in a better place and act and behave differently, think more clearly, all those kind of things.
And it seems like when we're grateful, we're tapping into things in our mind that, like you said, that make us feel better. Like we are loved.
Yeah.
If you recognize that someone has done something for you, the assumption there is, oh, that person cares about my well-being. Oh, that's a good feeling. I feel like I'm supported and loved. That's essential for our mental health. And the other thing, it taps into this idea that we're maybe not alone. I think maybe some of us struggle when we think like, oh, I have to do this on my own and no one is here helping me. And tennis is especially sort of in some ways toxic for the mind because you are, unless you're playing doubles, but in singles tennis, what Djokovic plays, you're out on the court on your own. Yes, you can look to your coach and some fans in the stadium, in the seats, but so much of it is so isolating. And I feel like that even I play at a much lower level of tennis. I do feel, that battle of I had to rely on myself. So that's not always good for the mind because we're not designed to be, we're a social species or a social animal. We're not meant to be alone. So maybe the gratitude taps into some of that bit of our social biology or our social psychology. And that's also a source of well-being. So
yeah, no, I love that. Right before you're about to talk, that thought entered my mind. And one other way to put it would be the experience of gratitude connects us to people. The feeling of isolation makes us feel lonely and withdrawn and not connected. And that's suffering for humans. We need to be connected.
With gratitude, and I'm wondering, so Mike, from your perspective as a therapist, would you ever tell someone to fake gratitude, like fake it until you make it? Like start saying thank you more often, just even if it's a superficial thought, even if you just, you're just sort of saying the words. Is that something you might recommend? Even because it's hard, maybe sometimes it's hard to feel grateful. Maybe we're not sure who to be grateful to or for what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is something to the fake it till you make it idea, no doubt.
Yeah.
I've heard Huberman talk about this too. It really is about the experience of feeling grateful. So I do think while we practice and train ourselves to be more habitually grateful, it's okay if you don't actually feel grateful while you're going through the motions of doing it. I always say to people and to myself, that's okay as long as you're acknowledging that that's what's happening. So if I'm doing my gratitude practice at night and I actually resist it totally and I don't feel grateful and I don't even want to acknowledge gratitude, in some ways that's okay. It's just that I am honest with myself about that's what I'm experiencing. And I'm not saying to myself things like, I should feel grateful and I don't. And that's a problem. Therefore, this is stupid and all that kind of stuff. It's more, I'm doing this because I know it's the right thing to do and it will get me to where I want to go, so to speak. And that is good. And nothing is perfect all the time. So,
right. Maybe one. Let me. So I know we want to continue with the video. Are there any costs? I find in emails with, say, students that I work with, I often thank them for emailing me, and I often wonder, am I actually thankful? Like this is more work, or the student's asking a tough question. I'm stressed out about other things. This is the last thing I want to deal with right now. Are there costs to the amount of gratitude lying that I do, or that we all do? Like if
lying?
I say okay, well, or sorry, if I say hi so and so, like thanks so much for your email, which I tend to do because I think it's polite and I'm trying to be grateful.
Right.
But sometimes in a specific moment, I'm like, I don't want to. I'm not grateful for this email because it's a nuisance for me right now. Right. Yes, and that's just being human.
Yes.
Are there costs to me saying thank you when I'm not thankful?
That's a good question. I would say what you're doing right now, the honesty about that's what's happening is what matters.
Okay.
That there's a tension there.
Right.
And then you can ask yourself, maybe next time I do it differently, or maybe next time I acknowledge that my resistance to the gratitude is really just because I'm annoyed and tired and burnt out and whatever. And so that's a bit of that fake it till you make it idea, right? You can sort of express the gratitude even if you don't feel it, as long as you're acknowledging that that's what's happening. Right. Or that you have the insight to know that that's what's happening.
So that awareness is our armor against the toxic effects of lying.
Yes.
Because we know, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not thankful now, but I'm not thankful because I'm stressed.
Yes.
It's not actually because I'm not thankful for a student reaching out to me. I want students to reach out to me.
Yes.
And I like when they do, and it's good for them and for me. And okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. Because I think this is a lovely example of a high achieving, athletic, super kind of strong guy expressing love and emotion and kindness. And often in our society, maybe not so much beyond the culture war and all that nonsense, showing love and appreciation and affection actually is a courageous, admirable thing to do. And I think maybe we should do a video on male athletes sort of being that very sensitive, authentic self. I just wanted to pause and acknowledge him for doing that here. And it's beautiful to see, right? And we all connect to it and understand it, but we also resist doing that for lots of reasons. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to add? Anything?
No, I entirely agree. It's usually these are like some of my favorite moments. You have these incredibly tough athletes, and then they have this sort of the softer side, male or female or whatever. It's always beautiful moments. The only thing I wanted to flag also is, he's giving a lot of really good advice to parents.
Hmm.
Because he's going back to our gratitude discussion. He's giving, he's saying like, this trophy is also yours. I mean, to his coaches and to his friends and families, wife and kids, but also to his parents who believed in him, who were willing to take a chance on their child's dreams, which is hard to do, right? Like, it was not the traditional path to play tennis, probably in Serbia in the 1990s, at least maybe for the Djokovic family. It raises interesting questions about how do we as parents, Mike, you and I we have kids. I have a daughter. You have 2 kids. Like how do we raise them so they feel like they're supported in achieving their dreams? What if we don't agree with their dream? Like, or what if we think their dream is like, oh no, you're nuts for thinking you're going to be an elite tennis player. Like, it's expensive, as he admitted. It's potentially a recipe for wasted time away from school. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a parent, manage your child's dreams in a way that leaves everyone better off?
Yeah,
it doesn't maybe sever the relationship, make it toxic, make your kid think that, oh, you're actually trying to get in my way, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds like you had some awesome parents.
Yeah, I think
from what he's saying.
Going back to this idea of honesty, I think number one, are we pushing our kids or getting them to engage in activities for our sake because we're fulfilling our own needs and our own stories of what our kids supposed to be? Or are we attuning to the skill set of our kids and empowering that for them, not for us? And so I think clearly if he didn't show an aptitude for tennis, maybe his parents wouldn't have gone through with it all. So I think very much is this about me as the parent? Or is this actually about an honest reflection of what my kid is capable of? Right. And then I think that helps.
What complicates things there is sometimes what the skill is good at, what the child is good at might not enable them to get a job, right? Sometimes you see pressure from parents to be like, okay, you're great at, some skill, but, I want you to be a lawyer, an accountant, and a doctor. I don't want you playing with your little passion. Yeah, that's fine. Great. Have fun with it. But it's not going to be your life because how do you pay the rent? How do you buy a home? How do you raise kids for yourself? Things like that. So, yeah, like how much do you run with your kids' interests? I can see how parents might struggle with it when they think, what might this mean for my child 5 years from now, 10 years from now? If I don't push them now to go to school as opposed to play tennis, what might that mean for them as a 30-year-old? Are they going to be a total basket case, no education, no career prospects, in a failed tennis dream? Like, that's
difficult. I think the balance there is that honesty, taking it sort of day by day, so to speak, with the end in mind, right? So, or with the future in mind. Let's focus on the present. Let's do everything we can now, while being aware of potential pitfalls or potential barriers down the road and doing your best. No one's perfect. We make mistakes. We're never going to be able to figure it out. And that can be tricky. I don't have there's no right answer, I don't think.
Right.
I think the honesty, it's always about the honesty to the best of one's ability.
And maybe the other thing is things don't have to be, you don't have to only do one, like, life is probably best experienced when you're talented or skilled at multiple things at the same time. So you can prioritize your child's dream while also encouraging them to diversify what they do and what they're exposed to. And yes, sometimes you have to do things that you might not be as interested in, but are very important. Like you have to attend class. I want you to put your full self into school, but also like make sure you're learning some, basic reading and comprehension skills and math skills and playing with your friends and all those things to have like a well-rounded, existence.
For sure.
So making that, I can understand how that could also be difficult, but maybe that's also a way around, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and not having the child say, okay, I'm only going to do this. You're encouraging them to diversify a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah. There seems to be a commitment from Djokovic and many other players, but also just like being polite, being respectful, like being nice and kind. He admits, he's like, oh, Medvedev or Daniil, I should have started speaking about you. Happy anniversary. Like there's some just basic decency in the way he's presenting himself now. We cannot speak to what he's like in his private life. I have no idea. But there seems to be just like this commitment to, I want to do the right thing. And I think that sometimes is important. Like we should always strive to be polite and respectful to other people. And I think that can also be very useful, not only for the recipient of said gestures, but also for ourselves, like to tell ourselves we are actually like, we're not so horrible. You know, we had that previous discussion, Mike, a previous podcast about how we have these monsters inside of us that we're trying to tame. But I think emphasizing and prioritizing whoever we engage with, just be nice, be kind, listen to them. You know, I think that's what he's talking about, and that's something worth emulating to the extent that we can in our interactions each day with whoever we meet and chat with.
Yeah, I really like that. It ties in a little bit to just the embodiment of gratitude and attuning to the better parts of who we are as human beings. And so there's a great example of that. And that all contributes into not only making our own lives better, but the world better, and if you will. And no one's perfect, as you said. We're not always going to be like that in different aspects of our life. We may struggle. Although, I do like you pointing out how it really is about the intention, right? Or the emulation of these qualities of humanity that are helpful for all of us, no doubt.
And there is an interesting tension between, so the first part of Djokovic's statement here, which is, you know, about being nice and being kind and saying the right things, congratulating an opponent, celebrating their celebrations in life of an anniversary, but then also like being authentic. So there's a tension there because sometimes our authentic selves aren't nice and kind. So the larger question is, how do you balance, well, I'm actually sort of upset with you. I'm not grateful for this email you wrote me. I think it's rudely worded. That would be my authentic response in some situations, but it's not the right response, or it's not the nice and kind response. So sometimes I think it takes a bit of thinking about, well, should I share my authentic self with this person? Is it the right way? Or should I just sort of like share it with myself, work through it, reflect on it, but save the other person, spare the other person some of the internal turmoil and frustrations we have with, you know, whatever we're feeling based on the interaction we're having with them. So our authenticity may actually be something we don't publicly display all the time.
Yes.
Like it doesn't always have to be, oh, I'm so angry, I'm so angry, I'm so angry. It could just be, we want to get that out in some way. But we also, I think, in our interpersonal relationships, really emphasize the kindness, being nice, being present. And then maybe some of our darker aspects we sort of manage, not internally only, but I'm not sure what you think of this, but how do you I mean, I'm rambling and I'm not sure this is clear, but how do we balance being nice and kind with being authentic when sometimes our authentic selves aren't nice and kind?
Yes. So just to distinguish nice from kind, I think in popular discourse, being nice is sparing other people's things. And it's actually, that's one way to think about it. That would be being nice, maybe in interactions or something like that. Being kind is, I always say there's nothing nice about being kind. So being kind is more honest and direct and authentic, and not thinking you're responsible for other people's feelings. I don't want to say this to be nice because I don't want the other person to be upset. Yeah. And there's nothing virtuous about that at all. Right. I think to your point, though, there is a time and a place for that. So if we're being honest and authentic, so to speak, and we choose not to be forthright and quote unquote kind, that's okay. Let's just ensure that we are doing it in some sense for the right reasons, not because we're trying to be nice to spare someone's feelings. It's more, this is just not ultimately the right thing to do right now. And I'm not going to lie to myself about why I'm not saying it. Right. And there is a time and a place, certainly, for holding back from what we want to say because it's just not the right time, right? It's not appropriate right now. Right. And that's where, as you say, if we are dysregulated and angry or whatever, and we're going to react from a place that's not clear, that's probably when we want to keep it in. And these are all ideals, okay? Remember, we're humans. This is hard. These are ideals. Although the outcomes are always better, right? If I can, there's a lovely saying in AA, something like, there's nothing much greater than the ability to shut your mouth and not write things or say, like in an email, something. It's basically shutting mouth or tongue and pen. So there's a value in keeping your mouth shut when it comes from a place that's activated and angry, because it's not actually authentic. It's self-serving and yeah.
So being nice sometimes involves some lying. Being kind sometimes requires more truth-telling, authenticity,
Yes.
and that depends on, like you said, the circumstance, the nature of the relationship with the two people. Often, the less close two people are, the nicer they will be to each other. Right? Just because the relationship can't sustain criticism.
Yes. That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay. So there's that. Okay. So nice, less authentic, kind, you're saying is often more authentic.
Correct. And actually just more ethical.
Yes. But not always more appropriate, which is interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Okay. Let's get back to it. Anything to say about the sort of tying in Kobe Bryant there and expressing gratitude, or the things that he learned about?
I think it is a nice moment. And I'm curious about the content of the conversations they would have had. Like what did Kobe say to Djokovic when he's trying to, like you said, come back from a series of injuries? What is the winner's mentality? Like having that mindset and knowing where you need to be at emotionally to achieve peak performance in whatever you do. What does that consist of? I wonder I would love to know what that is, right? And how we can sort of build it into whatever we're doing.
Yeah, I think one thing I wanted to mention at some point, and this seems like the right point at the right time, perhaps Kobe, or those type of conversations and this peak mentality, Mamba mentality, is sort of, life happens, life is difficult, don't complain, keep working hard, eye on the prize. And one thing you see here from Djokovic, or actually what you don't see, is he did not make one snide comment about being not allowed at the last US Open, right? He didn't say anything about the vaccine stuff. He didn't say anything about being kind of pushed aside, and really, whatever you think about this, okay, I think treated poorly. Whether or not it's not so much that not about violating the rules, so to speak. So if he didn't want to be vaccinated, that's fine. He's not allowed to play. Fine. It's more the kind of moral outrage and the criticism that he received for his views on vaccines or whatever it is. I just think it's admirable that he just doesn't whine or complain about it, or never really brought that up at all, even in this interview or in others. And that is this Mamba mentality. That is this orientation to, let's set aside all the bullshit. Let's keep our eye on the prize. Let's take responsibility and for our actions and the consequences of those actions. Okay, so the consequences for him were, I think he missed at least 2 majors, right? Or did he miss 4? Anyway, it doesn't matter however many he missed. He took responsibility for that. He kept going. He came back, and he's still kicking ass. And that's pretty admirable.
Yeah, it's admirable on also the fact that Moderna sponsored the US Open, and I think was a lead sponsor, and they were on their label, their brand was sort of on the center court, and it's admirable for all the reasons you mentioned, not having any resentment, but also not even using that as a trigger, right? Seeing that logo there, that corporate logo, that sponsorship, and seemingly being okay with it. I mean, maybe the victory helps, right? He's probably in a good mood. If he's not in such a good mood, if he had lost, what would he have said? We don't know. We'll never know. But for sure, I think that's it's such a important thing that he mentioned. The other thing I loved what you said, Mike, is, in regards to the Mamba mentality or the winner's mentality, is just like this grind attitude. Like, all right, what am I working on today? And don't think too far in the future. Don't think too much in the past. Just get the things knocked off that I need to knock off on my to-do list. I really like that. And also, it seems like a bit of like tunnel vision, like being so narrowly focused on what you're doing that you're not even maybe engaging in resentment. maybe Djokovic is so focused on his task, so focused on being grateful to the people around him that support him, that all the other, like you said, those engaging in moral outrage, all the criticism that he received, maybe it's just sort of like it doesn't really enter his brain, or maybe that's the ideal. So I think there's a lot there that you said that's important for adopting a winner's mentality, and not just for sports, but for just like a life, like being a winner in life. Like what does that mentality consist of? And winning doesn't always mean getting your way. Winning really means just continually bouncing back from the stuff that is thrown at us. There's like that Rocky 4 or Rocky 5. Remember that scene? It's like, it's not how many, I can't even remember the quote.
Is it maybe not how much you get knocked down, but get up? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's like how many times you can get knocked up and keep moving forward, something like
get
that.
Knocked down. Yeah,
we should probably maybe link to that.
Yeah, maybe.
That's probably a good way. Yeah, and that's easier said than done. But maybe that's a huge bit of just like keep going forward, keep moving forward. Be thoughtful in how you move forward.
Right.
Don't do it unthinkingly, but one small step at a time.
For sure. And maybe just to give a bit of the other side, maybe is, or know when it's time to give up.
Yeah,
that's important, because you often see athletes, maybe we'll just use that example, who just go a bit too long, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to let go. They don't want to give up. Or people in general, maybe you're struggling in a relationship that you know needs to end, but you just won't let it go. Or maybe you're getting high and drunk all the time, and you're trying to fight through and push through and persevere, but it's time to just stop. Or maybe you're in a job that is torturing you, and the hyper productive, grinded out mentality is actually really causing you to suffer and is putting you in a bad place. So it is important to just have that context to the grind mentality. And I'm not saying you weren't saying that, but just to add that to.
Yeah, there is it's hard to figure out when to stop grinding. And I think there's a take on depression that I think is useful here. Some evolutionary psychologists say that depression or low mood is the way, not just sadness. It's not just feeling sad. It's actually our brain's way of telling us to stop doing what we're doing. Because the brain is saying, we're not going to give you energy to do this.
Interesting.
Hence low mood, low energy in the morning to do what you're about to do. So if you're grinding and you're just fighting, like, oh, I'm just so miserable doing this, like you said, that's an indicator to start grinding at something else.
Yeah, nice.
But but if you're working away at something that really gives you motivation, despite how hard it is, despite the setbacks, despite frustration, that's probably the indicator to keep going and keep pushing forward on that path. Yeah. But once that path starts to make you depleted, and not an inspired, like doesn't like give your internal fire fuel, then that's a good sign. Yeah,
I want to add to that. Yeah. Because what starts to happen there and what reinforces depression or low mood is, I'm a stupid, lazy fucker because I can't get motivated. And what's wrong with me?
Motivated to do a specific task that actually is draining you.
Correct, yes. Yeah. And people create all kinds of narratives around that where they are the problem and they just beat themselves up so much. And maybe part of them is a problem, so to speak. And the problem probably is that they're doing something that's actually hurting them. So the problem isn't them, it's that they're just making a decision or they're looking at the situation in a way that's unhelpful. And it feeds that sort of victimization. I'm bad, I'm this, or other people are the cause of my problems and all that kind of stuff. And, and so it's a tricky thing to know sometimes when you're lying to yourself. And that goes back to, you can't do this alone. Okay. None of us can do any of this stuff alone. We need help. As we talked before about Djokovic, he's got a huge team around him. He asks for help. He knows that he needs help and he gets it. And that's awesome. So I think we should.
And Mike, I got you to chat with this stuff. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ditto. Okay, everybody. Thank you for your attention. Hope you like that. Please comment, subscribe, hit us up, share this with someone else you think who may like it. Okay. Peace out.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I am very grateful that you watched to the end of this video. Please click one of the boxes to watch more of our content, and otherwise have a great day. Peace out.